Vaporwave was a fun little dip into extreme detachment and irony that I thought was the coolest thing as a freshman in high school. You probably did too if you were insufferable like I was. Recently, I found myself listening to some Minecraft atmospheric background music, and then I eventually came across this. Chill Nights 1998, and then eventually I came across this. Mallsoft Vaporwave VHS 1980s Nostalgia Mix. Now, I do not remember the 1980s, or 1998 for that matter, but it got me thinking about how Vaporwave isn't like how it used to be anymore. And more importantly, the reason why Vaporwave is gone isn't because we just stopped caring about it, but it's also because people from the outside came in and turned it into a malicious and hateful thing. For those who only saw this occur in passing, let me give you the rundown. Despite the retro appearance, Vaporwave is not retro. I am also now thinking about how 16 years ago this was relevant, and it's not now, but I remember when it was. I don't feel good about it. Vaporwave wasn't the first iteration of retro revivalism. If you've ever seen anyone try to bring back like a clothing trend or something from the 90s or the 70s even, this is a version of that. Now this isn't retro revivalism because it doesn't fit that definition all of the way. This specific wave never existed. Vaporwave explores the 1980s through the memory of it with a heaping pile of irony, especially with this very nonchalant take on capitalism that unless you're surrounding yourself in this environment, you're not really gonna fully understand. Plus, any surrealist movement, this one included, needs to be overthought and viewed in a very apathetic lens. Otherwise, you don't really get it. A big element to be aware of is how heavy-handed a lot of advertisements can be. More specifically, how they try to sell you on a feeling. Now, I would be doing an incredible disservice to the aesthetic by not mentioning Arizona tea and Fiji water. Pinks and blues definitely do make up the majority of this color scheme. More importantly though, both of these drinks symbolize some sort of luxury. I don't really think that if Dasani water was in its place, it would really carry the same air of mystique and exotic mysticism that the other two have. They feel daydreamy, at least by most metrics they do. The aesthetic satirizes these gas station beverages for a few reasons. It looks cool, very 80s coded, and it can create a point of reference. Except the point of reference is a corporation's take on what luxury is. Did you guys talk to your parents or legal guardian about how things were in the past? Not just in a I remember when my brother shot a squirrel with a Red Ryder BB gun kind of way. I mean, did you really let them rant and talk about how things used to be before they had kids and everything got different? Pretty sure the last part was just my parents, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you got the things were simpler back then talk at one point or another. You also probably created a mental image of what all of that looked like in the first place. Okay, hold on to that mental image here for a little bit. Personally, my mental image of this is Michael Jackson's Thriller before all the monsters show up. Kind of smells like cigarettes there too. Sound of Diana Ross is in the background, and probably Sade now that I'm thinking about it. And that is the core of all of these manufactured memories. Music carries such a specific vibe from the time that it's from, unless it's specifically trying not to. A ton of love and appreciation into this art form creates such a visceral experience that you can come back to and sit you right back in that time frame. That's why the fact that we don't have it anymore just kind of hurts that much more. Before we get to how we lost Vaporwave, we need to first understand the foundation of it, how we got it in the first place, and the ironic detachment started in 2010 as a reaction to chillwave. Often these two things do get mixed up quite a bit. They are kind of indistinguishable from one another, but the primary point where they separate is intention. Chillwave started on the internet and was intentionally very nostalgia heavy, and the fact that it relied so heavily on nostalgia was a very big point of its criticism. If you do listen to some chillwave, I recommend that you listen to the Life of Leisure LP by Washed Out. I think it's a very good start. Vaporwave's ironic take on chillwave is kind of what just gave it all of its popularity in the first place. Where chillwave caught a lot of criticism for its influence, Vaporwave did way more than just double down on it. Doing so is exactly what made Vaporwave so prolific in the first place. Because you gotta say it with me now, it's only cringe until it works. If you double down on something so hard that it's just inseparable from what you do, it stops being cringe. It just kind of becomes what it is. A shining example of Vaporwave aesthetic and sound without a doubt in my mind is Floral Shop by Macintosh Plus. I mean, there's a whole meme stemming from one of its songs. That track in question is Lisa Frank 420 Modern Computing. I do not speak Japanese, so I will not be attempting all of that. Let's take a couple moments here to read some comments.
When you realize that lamps in video games use real electricity. Why does a computer freeze when it overheats? When you realize that B, P, Q, and D are all the same letters. Just so you know, my dyslexia just like fucking shot me in the head for that one. I could not do that.
Just a perfect blend of internet-isms and just shower thoughts. So what went wrong? What happened? Why does it seem that Vaporwave is now populated with some of the worst people you could ever meet. That's where we get to the very big bummer part of this whole video. Vaporwave, it's bad. Yeah, unfortunately, a cool thing gets co-opted by 4chan, turns into something bad, and it sucks now. It sucks really bad now. It bums me out because it's no longer a, hey dude, look at this cool trippy thing I found. It's now, hey man, is this a dog whistle? That's kind of where we're at. Losers who think supremacy is the end-all be-all have kind of ruined our fun little internet thing. Now, I did also say this is a bit our fault, so let me explain before you write me a new one in the comments. The internet, being rather famous for its freedom of speech, relies heavily on community moderation. Sort of why community notes do what they do. The things that we like here on this great shared internet space need us to safeguard it from being repurposed, turned into something completely awful and nasty that you never wanted it to be in the first place. But that didn't happen. So let me explain some bar culture, and that'll kind of narrow us down here. Let's say you run a bar. You see the same patrons day to day, some of them more often than others. Everybody respects the culture by participating in it and just being a part of it. One day, a white man wearing a leather jacket and sporting a bald head comes in and sits at the bar by himself. You don't kick him out because it's not illegal to have a leather jacket or be bald. But more people looking just like him start to come in too. Now your new regulars are starting to look a lot like this guy. Your previous regulars, they're gone, and your new customers have a lot more incomplete windows tattooed on the back of their heads and 88 written on some point in their body. So what happened? What went wrong here specifically? That first guy, when he showed up, he should have been rejected and then ejected out of the bar, never to return again. Then the bar would still probably be chill to this day. Now that isn't what happened for Vaporwave. Vaporwave started out on 4chan, as all bad things do. It got worse, it created its own version of Vaporwave, started to replace other Vaporwave outside of that damp dungeon of 4chan. This part sucks too. Not nearly as bad though, but it by no means helped the situation. The part about being anti-capitalist got exaggerated heavily. Adam Harper's 2012 article dogpiling Vaporwave did exactly that, so it just didn't do any good here. He connected the ironic messaging to being anti-capitalist, and that stuff sort of soured the perception for many years to come if you weren't familiar with the whole thing. It made anything claiming to be Vaporwave very morally hard to defend. Is there any hope for Vaporwave? To me, I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe. Also, if we consider the fact that nuance is a very hard thing for the public to grasp, I don't know if we can ever really get back to what it once was. Look at the Buddha symbol of peace, for instance. That is a way worse version of what happened here, so not saying it's comparable, just kind of rhymes a bit. It's a way worse thing, but that's why I don't think it's going to come back. At least not in the same way. The music remains, but the culture absolutely does not. Obviously, again, the future of this relies a lot on the general public and their ability to perceive this, which again, when confronted on something like this, they tend to generalize instead of add nuance. And that's why I want to arm you with a couple of things, because I love niche sides of the internet, and I'm sure you do too if you're subbed, which if you're not subbed, do that please. Vaporwave didn't disappear. Like I said, the music's still there, it's still getting compiled like I detailed before. What disappeared was the ability to encounter Vaporwave without also inheriting nearly a decade of political baggage, media narratives, and internet discourse, now mine included. So it's definitely going to weigh a little bit heavier in your noggin than it was before. What can change is the way that we tackle issues on our digital playgrounds day to day. This is a problem that's going to occur everywhere on the internet, and that is bad apples. Gotta get rid of them. I know it's not always that simple, but you gotta be skeptical, and sometimes you gotta recognize that the bald guy wearing a leather jacket is maybe not exactly what you think it is. No space is inalienable. Every space has its duty to protect its own and make sure that the core of what it was doesn't get disregarded for something much more sinister. Who knows, maybe we'll get a Vaporwave in the future of the year 2000, where everyone just gets really into Fruger Arrow. Well, I don't really know of any branding other than the soap bottles for that one.